Rarely do I play a game in the current generation that really reminds me of why I fell in love with gaming as a whole, and it's not for a lack of effort. If anything, it's the exact opposite. Video games are so plentiful nowadays, it's virtually impossible to avoid quality releases. With accessibility at an all-time high and a rise in trends such as games releasing as free-to-play and virtual reality getting more love and attention, the gaming scene is not at all what it used to be. However, some things have held on steady. Not all things gaming related have become a massive mainstream success, to a certain extent anyways. One of those being the RPG genre, better known as role-playing games. This is a genre you really gotta embrace the grind to enjoy. Sifting deep down and dirty in the trenches. Micromanaging niche specific minuscule stat boosters is something that can't be appreciated on the surface level of gaming. The complex depth that RPG games have makes the average streamlined gamer think they have a severe brain injury. This intimidating entrance gate that is the best of the best that RPGs have to offer hasn't budged for those who aren't legitimate gamers. It can bend, but it'll never break. RPG games can be analytical, puzzling, and as difficult as trying to outrun Usain Bolt, but not all have a menacing front. There's tons of RPG games that represent this aspect. Earthbound, Dragon Quest, the Paper Mario series. I'll even throw in Evolution Worlds as a random, obscure reference that pleases nobody but myself. These games all look approachable from a visual standpoint, but still retain the strategic sink-your-teeth-in gameplay that RPGs are known for. One game that has the same colorful, welcoming graphics, as well as the tactical, detailed gameplay, which I only heard about and played recently, is none other than Citizens of Space. Citizens of Space was released June 18th, 2019 and came out on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and the port I'll be playing for this review, PC. I'm sure Citizens of Space seems like a completely random game to want to review. So what exactly drew me to it? What caught my eye and made me want to check it out? Oh, how Gabriel P. Newellenson loves to make you spend your money. Yes, I found Citizens of Space while scrolling through the endless list of games priced at dirt cheap during the Steam summer sale. The graphics looked really cool, then I noticed it was published by Sega? What? Now I had to check it out. However, Citizens of Space wasn't developed by Sega, but Eden Industries. They have a couple other games out, the most noteworthy of which being Citizens of Earth. Turns out Citizens of Space is a sequel for a 4-year-old game. Funny how things work out, isn't it? It's a shame I don't have the experience of playing the first game heading into the second. There could be a big gap of information I'm missing, but if the script writing and storytelling is good, I won't need it. Kicking things off, we step in the shoes of the Ambassador of Earth, arriving at the Galactic Federation to be sworn in as Earth's official ambassador. Don't get it twisted, we aren't the President of Earth or the Mayor, we're the Ambassador. A single sole representative at this gathering of the minds from every other planet in the known galaxy. Coming off the space taxi, we're smack-talked almost immediately. The Ambassador thought he could catch a ride for free simply based off his status. The captain lets us know that this is simply not the case. Why? Because we don't look like an ambassador. Ouch. That's a black eye for the ego. We pay our fee and move on, but not before being greeted by our newly assigned assistant named... Oh. Awesome. It's nice to be around a fellow Earth citizen, though. Their relationship between each other is funny to watch. The ambassador is a pompous, egotistical, unaware nitwit, as we've seen already, and the assistant is the complete opposite in every way. He's level-headed, rational, and not an idiot. After walking around the Federation for a bit, I love watching how other people interact with the Ambassador. We are a human from Earth, but most other things here aren't so human-looking at all. Aliens, robots, other indescribable things. It's a cool change of pace to be taking the role of something all too familiar, the smug politician who's a bit too full of himself, but to be the odd one out because of the setting. Earth is as significant to these fellow galactic inhabitants as a boomerang is to finding out how many balls of each color are in the ball pit at McDonald's. I have no clue how I think of half the things I say. While the ambassador introduces himself at the assembly hall in front of our new acquaintances, we discover that Earth has suddenly gone missing. That's pretty good for a first impression, right? With the ambassador and the assistant being the only two people here who care, they decide it's their duty to try and find Earth's whereabouts. The ambassador asks to borrow a ship from the Federation, and he's swiftly denied and gets booted out. Excellent. It's hard to find your home planet when you're stranded on foreign soil with nowhere to go, but lucky for us, the captain returns and he's down to take us wherever we need. The only thing stopping us is a fellow by the name of Quack McCool. Damn ducks. Turns out Quack wanted to use the captain here to transport some Moonbucks special blend contraband to the outer reaches of the cosmic galaxy. Being the moral guy he is, the captain declined. Unfortunately, Quack was able to sift his shifty wings through the seedy underbelly and pull some political strings, which resulted in the captain getting his license revoked. If we can come to some sort of agreement with Quack McCool, the captain is more than happy to fly us around and assist us in our Earth-searching journey. The assistant and the captain both join our party, and bing bang boom, we're on our way. Upon joining our party, we now have the ability to name said people instead of calling them by their job title. For clarification's sake, I'm gonna call the characters by like the name I gave them rather than the job title they're given that like is their name, unless it makes sense to do so. I know with doing that there is a supreme opportunity that I'm missing to consistently call people like dickface and stuff like that, but believe it or not, I do in fact have a heart. From here is where we experience the first taste of the diverse buffet that is the gameplay of Citizens of Space, of which I'll be breaking down into 3 different sections: interaction, exploration, and combat. I think it's only fair to do things the old-fashioned way, don't you say? First come, first serve, so let's kick things off with interaction. With Citizens of Space being an RPG game, it should come as no surprise that there's plenty of dialogue to be read. A third of the fun of Citizens of Space is talking to and mingling with all the characters. I'm not exaggerating when I say every character, big or small, is fully fleshed out. I was actually shocked at how much love and attention each character got. I was completely blown away. I was stunned. What did they do exactly? How did Eden Industries make almost every character you talk with a memorable one? Put simply, these characters were made to be characters. Now, what do I mean by this? Quite often I see people associate characters as people or beings that at their basic purpose populate a game. It can be a single person, they can come in swarms. The fact they exist in a world is enough to make them a quote-unquote character. The word has unintentionally been watered down over the years at the fall of nobody specific, and truthfully speaking, it was bound to happen at some point. With games that focus on realistic settings and making characters have more true-to-form human qualities, these wacky, over-the-top figures that once held center stage have long but left the theater. Yes, you may be a character, but you don't have any character. There isn't a single character whose presence is wasted here, and because of that, thus the same can be said for your time. Not only do they all have something to say, they're all made relevant in one way or another. Either they further expand the legend of whatever area you're in, or inject you with so much character, they rub you a certain way that will forever leave an unforgettable first impression. Every aspect of these characters help boost that cartoon-esque design that hasn't felt fresh in the gaming scene for quite a while. The tone of their voice, their facial expressions, body language, what they wear, the color of their clothes, inside and out and head to toe, these characters have their personality on full display for all to see like a nudist parade. So creative, so interesting, so unique, such insane combinations I've never seen in any other game before or could even be conceived by the human mind. I want to give specific examples on how each and every character is special, but I don't really want to spoil anything either, you know. The story development and character development here is so consistently fun, engaging, and entertaining that to just tell it to you secondhand as opposed to you experiencing it firsthand would be a huge detriment. Just for a quick example, real early in the game, our journey takes us to the moon. To my surprise, it wasn't made of cheese at all. My whole life has been a lie. Breakfast is ruined. Why do I feel like I've heard that before? Maybe I'm imagining it. Like ghosts. While wandering around, I bumped into a jacked, steroid-abusing, fluorescent wristband-wearing, pink mustached Moon, named Master Moon. Turns out he's training 2 junior moons to become beefy moons, and challenges us to take him on. Trying with all their might, they don't put much of a fight, and after defeating the Master's 2 lackeys, he quickly moves us along like there was nothing to see. This may seem like a completely random interaction to bring up, but that's why I chose it. These guys had nothing to do with the main story, a side quest, anyone, or anything besides themselves. They're about as random as an encounter as someone you saw at the grocery store today. How did I know you were in the grocery store today? I have my sources. The fact that any discernible amount of time and care was put into an interaction with some literal one-off characters that last for around, I don't know, 2-3 minutes max, is an extra amount of effort to give even the smallest of interactions that extra pinch of memorability. The attention to detail for something so minuscule like this is absolutely insane, but much appreciated. Now, if that's how the most insignificant characters in the game are handled, imagine the treatment anyone who holds any sort of meaning gets. Unsurprisingly, the more you trek up the hierarchy of significance, the more developed these characters become. regular villagers, not those kind of villagers, shopkeepers, not those kind of shopkeepers, common enemies, bosses, and of course yourself, the ambassador. Hell, even people waiting in a mile-long line are given dialogue that made me care about what they were waiting in line for. When was the last time you had fun waiting in a line that wasn't for the midnight release of Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival? Understanding a character is so crucial to building a relationship between the player and game. And I don't mean the player being aware like, oh, that's a bad guy. I mean the player being able to successfully acknowledge what makes a character tick. The motives, the intentions, the emotions, the influences, their likes, dislikes, their annoyances, the way in which they carry themselves, understanding them fully, completely. The same way you can gauge your best friend or closest family member. It makes you emotionally invested, and if you're emotionally invested, you care. When you care, anything that happens, good or bad, to someone that is good or bad, elicits a reaction from you. Character building, baby. Gotta love it. That is what Citizens of Space does so well with each and every single character. How do you encounter all these fine people? Well, you gotta walk around and lose track of your footsteps in the process. Welcome to Phase 2, Exploration. Searching over an entire galaxy for Earth sounds like a pretty big task and a bit of a troll task too, if I'm being honest, but if our voyage was as simple as a game of tic-tac-toe, that wouldn't be any fun now, would it? To explain exploration down to its most basic point in Citizens of Space would be to simply play the game. See, there is a set string of main quests you do to progress the main storyline, there's nothing new there, but it's not pushed in your face or shoved down your throat. You can tackle primary objectives at your own leisure, but most importantly, do what you want at your own pace. Want to head straight on and try and find Earth as quick as possible? Go ahead. Would you rather greet every side character, tackle every side quest, diving into the deep crevices of what Citizens of Space has to offer? You can do that too. Maybe you want to mess around with different items and see what upgrades and stat boosters suit your playstyle best and experiment with them all. It's all open season and fair game here. There's no outward or external pressure to do any certain thing at any certain time. Yes, the story naturally unravels more over time the further you progress, but there's never a hypothetical gun held up to your head demanding you play the main story to see the rest of what lies ahead. You feel in total control of the game's pacing because you are. Progress is made when you want it to be made. Your actions and choices feel more important here because you're directly responsible for what happens, when it happens, on your own time. I love it. Almost as much as foxes love toxicity. If you're familiar with the RPG genre, the gameplay routes that Citizens of Space really, goes down shouldn't be anything that feels all too foreign. Although the absolute freedom of control to dictate precisely how your gameplay experience flows, what we're manipulating isn't anything new. A plot-heavy main storyline serves as the main focus, chalk-heavy alongside smaller side diversions, fetch quests, collection missions, item combining and mixing to create new power-ups, weapons, or stat boosters. It's par for the course as far as RPGs go. Like I mentioned earlier, the way Citizens of Space creates its own unique magic through all of this is with its characters. When they tag along with you, the ride gets much more wild. Now, I hope you're sitting down for what I'm about to tell you. Throughout your travels in Citizens of Space, it is possible to recruit up to 40 active party members at once. 40. That's an almost incomprehensible number of party members, like, holy son of a UFC Undisputed 3. I thought Golden Sun had too many playable characters to play and keep track of, but baby Baba Ganoush to Citizens of Space put that game to absolute shame. Don't get too excited though, they don't all fight alongside you, this isn't Mountain Blade. The 40 citizens you can recruit are broken down into 3 different categories: Summon, Battle, and Partner. Let's talk about the partner characters first, because I find these folks happen to be the funkiest of the 3. These characters don't act on what you'd regularly expect from an RPG game. There's no fierce warriors overly obsessed with bloodlust, no devious sorcerers conjuring magical spells, no healers that are essentially useless outside of their healing abilities. These characters act as almost mod-like tweaks to the game. Ideally, this sounds unnecessary and perhaps a waste of time even, but there's some really cool bonus perks to be acquired here. For example, Snooty here, better known as the composer, allows you to set what music track plays where you are in the game. There's even an option to make it the only music that plays. Finally, I've been looking for a way I could listen to B44 nonstop without interruption. Dewey, aka the Collector, or as I like to call him, Galactus's baby brother and comic book guy put in a blender, gives you full, complete access to the bios of every common enemy, uncommon enemy, mini-boss, main boss, any enemy you've ever fought during your playthrough. It's pretty sick. We get some elite levels of intel from this dude: HP, attack stats, defense stats, even what they're weak in resistance to. It's like a digital strategy guide. Just being able to see the characters, like fully rendered out how they are in game is worth the hassle of trying to even recruit the collector. The assistant, or Caps as I renamed him later on, allows you to adjust the encounter rate for battles. Elise, aka the courier, acts as a portable item shop. As long as she's by your side, you can make an order for any item available and then she'll have it shipped to you in no more than 15 minutes. In real time, too. There's so much more cool stuff here to discover and mess around with, and I'm only skimming the surface with sharing what I have. You may argue that all this stuff either A, should just be in the game by default, or B, why do I have to recruit someone to have access to this feature? I can see where those people are coming from for sure, but the fact that these extra little bonus features are attached at the hip to a whole ton of different faces, locations, and storylines only further immerse me in the world. It didn't bug me a single bit at all. I never felt like I was experiencing something more bare bones or felt like something was missing from the overall puzzle of Citizens of Space before acquiring these citizens. They were all a total blast to scout, find, help out, and collect. That sounds weird, doesn't it? Collecting people? Isn't that what serial killers do technically? There's no abilities or basic functions locked behind these characters. Anything I was rewarded upon successfully recruiting these citizens to my party felt like a nice extra treat more than anything. Like when you get the actual mint you want after eating out, not those mint flavored mints. Get that shit out of here. I think it should go without saying what the battle citizens do, so I think I'll go ahead and touch on them last. Next, let's talk about the Summon Citizens. If I had to easily compare this group to something pre-existing in the gaming landscape, I'd say think of the assist trophies from the Smash series. They don't all aid you in battle like the assist trophies do, but this gang of hooligans acts as a helpful convenience above all else. Things that aren't needed, but are useful and make life a little easier. Woots is the botanist who can plant HP replenishing berries on various dirt mounds scattered across the galaxy. The whole derpy plant expert shtick, I thought a fun way of spelling roots would fit well, and she so looks like someone who would actually be named Woots. Really proud of myself for, genuinely proud of myself for coming up with that name. When I first had the light bulb moment, ding, I had the biggest eating grin for 20 seconds, uninterrupted. Snooty aristocrat Weldon, who is the banker, relishes in his greed. Adding him to your party shows the locations for hidden treasures on various planets. Oswald the mole, who works as the miner, can break open large boulders which contain various amounts of money to pad out your wallet. Moira the decorator moves giant stationary metal barricades specific to her, which grants you access to otherwise cut off areas. Xenia, the feisty alien reporter, shows you in-depth analytical stats regarding your battles in-game. Once again, none of these are really needed in the grand scheme of things, but they sure are nice to have around. Speaking of battles, let's smoothly transition to the third and final group of galactic freaks to be able to join your enormous party, thus being the Battle Citizens. Simply put, these are the citizens who fight with you in battle, and oh boy, did I sure save the best for last. It's such a magnificent, eclectic mix of existing creatures, the island of misfit characters who look insane but in fact are very cool. Maybe if that were the real name of the island, those toys wouldn't have been so bummed out. These guys excel everywhere in attitude, physical design, story backgrounds. I love each and every single one of them so much. So what exactly makes the Battle Citizens my personal favorite characters to play throughout the game? Well, to talk about those guys, we gotta talk about the third thing that makes Citizens of Space special, and that is the combat. These 12 right here, this rat pack, this is the gang. This is the squad, the group you spent every day of school with, the weekenders, the kids next door, the Citizens of Space.
A cluster of individuals bonded by the fabric of common ground, ambitions and understanding. There by your side through thick and thin, got your back when it's vulnerable, and rely on each other for strength and support when times get tough.
Now, I may be playing this up like a tad over dramatic, but it's genuinely how I felt. Real-time or turn-based is what many wonder when curious about the combat of an RPG game. Here in Citizens of Space, Eden Industries went down the tried-and-true turn-based route. Turn-based seems really hit or miss for most people. They either love it or hate it. I wouldn't say that I love turn-based combat per se, but I do prefer it over real-time. At least from the games I've played, turn-based seems to be a lot more thought out, technical, and strategic. I'm fine with both though. Depending on how many battle citizens you have in your active party, you sort them in a waiting line like formation. Top row, middle row, bottom bottom row. You can swap citizens in and out as you please or after one faints during battle, but they have to be in the same horizontal row. There is some strategy to where you place certain citizens. For example, I tried to make my top row consist of the more tanky characters, the characters who can withstand large onslaughts of damage while still being able to place some firm shots of their own. Middle row has more of the true assist fighters. They can hold their own, but rely more on alternative roles in battle. Status effects, bleed damage, healers, that kind of stuff. The strong backbone of any sort of functional, well-oiled machine. Bottom row was my miscellaneous section, a little bit of everything down here. Sarah is the solid 5 out of 10 at everything sort of deal. Exceptional at nothing, terrible at nothing, mainly exists as the last desperate attempt to keep your team afloat before your empire crumbles. Jacques the escargot chef. Okay. Very clever. Is a whole insane smorgasbord of damage, healing, status effects, but all of which are selected by a new random set of moves each turn. Some real funky stuff here. If I could sort out this bottom row within the other two, I would have. They wouldn't have ended up near the top of either, so instead they're cast as the stars of their own much less important role. Combat is the meat and potatoes of the gameplay in Citizens in Space. You'll spend more time staring at this screen than any other. In the top right, you'll spot the turn order. This isn't in every RPG game that has turn-based combat, and you don't have to look far to see that statement be true. But it's nice to be able to plan your moves ahead of time and not be surprised when you thought someone else's turn was going to happen when it didn't. A standard action point system dictates what moves you can and can't use. Weaker, more ineffective moves will give you points upon using them, where some of the more powerful attacks or effects that boost multiple members at your party can cost you more, if not all of the action points that your citizen has. This is pretty standard. There's nothing about how Citizens of Space handles the AP system that's anything to write home about, but if anything, it's well executed, so good job. However, we don't merely pick what we want to do, then watch the character execute said move over and over, rinse and repeat. Instead, to fill that dreaded empty space, we have mini games, kind of like Undertale, except actually fun. Just lost 97 subs with that one, didn't I? Was it worth it? Probably not. These aren't on the grandiose scale of Undertale, mind you, but it's the same general idea. Some of these games range from standard practices like button mashing and quick time events to slightly more complicated prompts like maintaining control of a wonky reticle that acts like a mechanical bull, or even timed meter button presses similar to those seen in most golf games. I feel like I'm becoming a bit of a broken record now, but once again, this isn't anything revolutionary or groundbreaking, but it does smoothly transition something considered by many to be tedious and monotonous to refreshing and fun. Clicking through menus in almost every RPG game is a task and a chore and feels exactly like that. Only in more recent times has it been experimented with to be anything besides a series of clickable boxes. Although what's here can be equated to nothing more than a handful of bite-sized mini-games, it helps to keep the momentum and flow of the game experience on a steady incline rather than struggling to maintain it. Like carrying King Mabel on his portable throne. Big ups if you got that reference, because I guarantee you didn't. This minigame system is the battle within the battle that makes being on top of your game so fun and important. Like, not only do you have to make sure you don't muck up the minigames at the cost of making any move you execute less effective, you also gotta monitor the order your party fights in, turn order, as well as item management. Oh yeah, I was gonna have to touch on this at some point. I've been talking about citizens for so long, there's one particular person I haven't brought up in a while. You! Yeah, where do you fit in all this? It should come as no surprise, as the ambassador, you stand in the back as regular citizens beneath you handle all the hard and dirty work, collecting any and all profits they've earned along the way. Kinda like real life. Now, as easy as it is to make fun of the most legitimately useless person being placed in the most important role in this game, the ambassador still has some intricacies that make him serve a purpose other than nothing. Anything that directly involves your party as a whole or aiding them without one citizen doing it to another is where you come in. In the top left, you'll notice the charisma meter. Use an item, charisma goes down. Fleeing a battle takes away a whole quarter of your charisma, if you can believe that. More useful items take away more charisma than small ones, as they should. It's kinda weird, but I dig this system a lot. The charisma meter essentially makes it so you can't really cheese the combat system at all. You can't spam items or rely on one specific summon to consistently get through the combat. You can lean on them to a certain extent, but you can't rely on them like we rely on our eyes to see. This three-way combination of well thought out, in-depth, and fun combat, interaction, and exploration all bring their unique flavors to the table to create one incredibly beautiful, delicious, peace sign looking pizza that I wouldn't mind taking a bite out of. In fact, I want more. I'm in a bit of a weird pickle here. Like I said earlier, there's so much fun, unique, truly intriguing stuff in Citizens in Space that to go out of my way to describe it secondhand as opposed to letting you experience it for yourself would not only be a disservice to you, but a disservice to all the time and effort put in from Eden Industries to craft this amazing game. Everything that I've said, and in as much detail as it's been, is still a very general overview of what I thought to be the three main components that made this game as fundamentally strong and entertaining to me as it was. The originality and creativity of every character, minor and major, every conversation had a meaning, everyone had a role they filled, bursting with personality. The overly wide assortment of distinct and varied locations with interesting landmarks to explore and places to visit. Combat that's consistently fresh, challenging, and engaging throughout the entire playthrough. I only have two slightly valid complaints when it comes to Citizens of Space, and I feel like even with this, I'm kind of like sort of stretching, but my first issue of which is the length. It took me 23 and a half hours to finish the story of the game, sitting at a 61% total completion rate. I do wish the game was longer, but I also realized the game could have potentially been watered down if that was done too, you know? There's little to no wasted time in this game. There's always something happening. There's always places to go and people to see. There's no fat that's been untrimmed or unnecessary, boring backtracking that's been implemented to pad out the playtime. None of that. The near 24 hours I played was all time spent doing new things almost all the time. I do wish it was longer, but 24 hours is still plenty long for a game, and perhaps keeping it on the shorter side as far as RPGs are concerned was for the best. I did dally around with a bit of post-game content, looking around for other people I hadn't talked to, citizens I hadn't met, just really do all that I wanted to before calling it a day. Finding intel and scavenging for pieces of Earth. After all, that's the whole point of the game, isn't it? And that's exactly where my second and final gripe kind of lies with Citizens of Space, is sort of the plot revolving, no pun intended, the plot revolving around Earth's whereabouts and kind of the severity of the task at hand. Yeah, I forgot about the whole point of the game there for a sec, didn't ya? The severity of the situation and progressive outcome is so underwhelming and lackluster, it's hardly worth any attention. When you eventually relocate Earth, it's an empty space void of anything. When you begin to find more pieces and monuments to return Earth to its former glory, it does just that. Erects a building there. It's very uninteresting. I went from thinking I had the fate of the world on my shoulders to realizing that I'm essentially rebuilding a metro complex. Like, oh wow, that's amazing. I was about as excited about finding out about that as I was when I heard that that Cat Peach was a character in Mario Kart. So, -2%? Aside from those two very small hiccups, I would honestly say that Citizens of Space is not only one of the better RPG games I've ever played, but one of the best games I have ever played. Definitely not a top 10, but maybe, possibly, perhaps a top 20. It really is that good. There's so much stuff this game does right and so little that it flubs up, you can't really go wrong with giving this game a shot. If you like RPG games, games with great character design, games with good dialogue, games with a fun combat system, there's a little bit for everyone here. This game really does cover every corner with a quality result. I genuinely would find it difficult for someone to try this game and come out with a negative experience. It's just great. It's fantastic. In hopes to give Citizens of Space more recognition, the recognition it deserves, tune in next video where I'll be doing a tier list for every battle citizen. This time I'm not holding back. If you thought this video was long, you ain't seen nothing yet, and I hope that is the case, because if that video is shorter than this one, then I'm literally setting myself up for failure right now. And if I'm watching this in the future and this is true, then I guess I can't do anything about it, and neither can you. I hope you all have a good night. Goodbye. God, I really need to work on my outro game. Good Lord.